Welcome back to the channel. It has definitely been a while since I made a YouTube video, and there's a very good reason behind this. But today I am getting another Hellcat. So as you can see behind me, the Hellcat Magnum really hasn't changed much, but I have been working on the car. The things I've been doing to her are just really time consuming and tedious. I've been working on one thing for the car for almost a month, and it has been pretty much killing me. But that's not what today's video is about. It is about my new Hellcat Charger that I bought very cheap from the auction, and that will be here in probably the next 15 minutes. And we'll get back to the Hellcat Magnum once I'm done with this very tedious process and project that I have going on. Also, this video is kind of pushing that I have an eBay store. So I have started an eBay store just to get rid of a bunch of parts that are laying around the shop, taking up space that I'm not using, that, you know, I bought vehicles for certain parts off of it, but then I have the rest of the vehicle and I'm not just gonna scrap it. So I have been throwing parts up on eBay, and the link for my store will be down in the description. I think it's just really nice to be able to get rid of a bunch of stuff. I have actually been selling a ton of stuff on eBay, which I was kind of, actually here's the Hellcat coming up the street right now. There's a car. Hopefully she rolls pretty well, because I don't know how we're gonna get that thing off. The pump got a little bit hot. The Charger is now in the shop, and it has quite a few good parts on it. I've been really looking her over. I'm really excited about this car because I needed some parts off of this car for the red Magnum outside. So I wanted to put these wheels on that car, and that's not really the whole reason I bought this car, but I know from experience that these engines, even though they get burnt down, they're still usable. I mean, you have to go through them because they got hot. This one doesn't look like it got too hot. I almost think the supercharger has been gone through because it looks like it has been powder coated. Usually this is what it looks like when it burns. It looks like there was a black matte or maybe gloss powder coat on there. You can see that there was something going on here. So I'm guessing there was a few mods done to the car. Maybe that was a catch can. You can see the leg maker intake. The carbon fiber gets really weird. It's just like it doesn't have any resonance. It didn't burn the carbon fiber, really. I mean, it kind of did. It's very surprising that it's still there. So another thing that I was looking at is this cooler pump. So I was thinking that we might have a nice unburnt coolant pump for the supercharger system, but unfortunately, this thing still got a little bit burned. The headlight also got burned. I thought this headlight was going to be a little bit better than it is. The filter down here almost looks like it's somewhat intact. This side of the car doesn't look like it burned as bad. Surprisingly enough, I was looking over the fenders. This fender has some, you know, burning. It burned the paint off, but also it looks like it's still straight. So I should be able to reuse this fender because I don't think it's warped, which is very surprising. And actually, it looks like somebody took a little bit of red paint and made this thing a red eye when it's just a regular Hellcat. Maybe, you know, I think it was turned up if it has smaller pulley, but it's not. Another thing on this side is this fender also looks surprisingly good. I'm very surprised because usually when this thin sheet metal warms up and gets hot, it warps. But both of these fenders, surprisingly enough, seem like they're still usable. This wheel looks like it's okay. I might have to have it refinished. I looked at the caliper on the truck. I thought this was from the fire and that it burned all the coating off of it, but the caliper is nice. The rotors have a little bit of a lip on them, which I wish they were a little bit better, but a good set of these Brembos is a pretty hefty penny, especially with the knuckles, because the knuckles are different now between the older versions and the newer versions, as well as the brakes. So you have to have the correct knuckles with your calipers and the rotors or they won't work. Another good thing is this front support. I always like to save these. I guess it got messed up when he pushed it in, but you know, I always like to save these. Some Hellcat valve stems. Oh, look at that. Like I said before, just some dusty calipers, which is nice to see because I thought that one might have been a little bit burned and I thought the other one was pretty burned. Then coming on the interior is pretty much done. I think the wiring harness underneath the carpet will probably still be good, as well as the RF hub that's under here and some other components. But for the most part, everything on the top, the headliner, all that stuff is all melted. All the wiring, this little shark fin antenna is melted. And then coming in here, the gauge cluster is smoked and gone. And this is sketchy. I noticed this earlier, an unblown airbag that just looks super crusty, like it's gonna just kill somebody. So I don't know what I want to do about that because it's kind of sketchy. I don't want that to like randomly explode. I think it would have already done so by now. I can't believe they left this on the car all the way here from Florida. The dash is completely destroyed. I wasn't expecting much from that. It looks like this door is also good. The rear door is also good. The car looks like it was relatively straight before the fire happened, and we have, you know, this will have to be repainted, but it's a good door. You can see right here there's a little bit of a crease, but I don't think that'll be an issue. That could have been from heat, or actually could have been from heat, but oh, and there's a dent right here. That's probably what's causing that. But for the most part, if somebody needed a door they needed to repaint, this would be a good one. That would also be a good one. So the only issue with large items like the doors is it's really hard to ship them. So doors, I usually sell trunks, quarter panels. I usually sell those locally just so I don't have to worry about shipping those. Also, the side skirts look good. I thought I had a good bumper until I first saw the car, and then I noticed for some reason the fire department destroyed the trunk for no reason. Why would you pop the trunk and cut it right here when the fire hasn't gone past the seats? It doesn't make sense. It didn't even go past here. Like, I don't understand the logic behind this. So I'll try to get the trunk open. Maybe there'll be something in there, because most likely whatever's in here is what was in here before the fires. So we'll see what's inside the trunk. As you can see, it's, you know, I haven't opened it, so maybe we'll get lucky with some Fast and Furious, you know, 10-year-old, 20-year-old TVs. And we have another good side skirt. And these two doors on this side, this one actually looks like it's perfect. And then this one just has some trim damage here and there. So let's get this thing on the lift her up, see what we have going on with the suspension. It looked like it had a pretty stock exhaust, and it has blacked out tail lights, and we'll just go from there. Well, this is the bumper. This is probably why the car lit on fire. What's up with all these extensions? Rope. Extensions and rope. And the hood fiberglass. I don't know why they put this on cars. In the training tunnel behind the firewall. It doesn't stop fires. It just continues to burn. I de-skinned my hood. Inner and outer. Look at that. Perfect. See if I can get this thing to release on the seat. Get her to pop. Oh, look at that. Oh, what's in there? What is that? A football sign. There's some luggage in there. Is this door open? Ooh, man, she opens like brand new. Look at that. Too bad this door panel is so messed up. I guess it's not 100% messed up. Got some shoes, brand new, only been through a fire. What do we got here? Has some batteries in it, I think. What is this? I think the battery is dead. A brand new, just wet HP mouse and a keyboard. I think the police would be okay saying this was natural tint. Yeah, man, it was just from in a fire. You know, super. You can't see anything out of it. It's good, right? Here, let's see if we can get the seat down now. Ooh, look at that. I thought this thing was cardboard. It has laces. I don't know if this is like homemade. Homemade football. Look at that. Out of metal. I think I might have figured out what started the fire. This thing was glued to the seat. Big time. Maybe? It's still plugged in? I don't know. And this seat is more burnt than that seat. And it was right on the cushion. You can see where it was. And napkins. We got the culprit. Look at that. This started the fire. It was pinched. Look at that, it melted through the thing. Yeah, don't slam your cord in between. Yep, that's what started the fire right there, I think. Oh, we got an Apple Watch. Man, look at that. Stamps, I could mail a letter in the 1970s. Bro, look at this. What's going on here? Oh. What is going on with this thing? Dang! Look at that. That's probably... What is that in there? What is that? Oh. Gone now. Oh man. I haven't seen one of these in a long time. 80 gig. There was a box in the back of the trunk with brand new gas pedal and brake pedal. These are nice. I think I'm going to use these on that. Brand new. Look at that. Still in the box. Trunk open, I was able to pull this from the inside with that. And I'm going to have to nickname this car the Roach Motel. Every time I look in here, in this trunk area. Oh yeah. Not sure why people do these little duck bills. They always spider crack. splatter crack. It's just plexiglass. I mean, it's not meant to have, and then rocks get in between there. See, there's rocks in between, and then it just messes up your wing. Plus, you have to drill your wing. I don't know. It's not really my style. I had to get the shift bezel off so I could put the car in neutral, and I had to pull this shift bezel, and this thing's burnt. This was carbon fiber, or is Dodge just simulating carbon fiber with aluminum? And it's just coated. It's not actually real carbon fiber. This is a Hellcat. It kind of looks like that to me, which now I'm kind of disappointed because you can see it right there. Looks like carbon fiber. It's just aluminum, guys, coated. Oh man, that's a brand new tire. Underneath the car, looks like they did the mid muffler delete. The cats are maybe still there. I haven't pulled them off to see if the material's still inside of them. Under here, it looks like a normal Hellcat. There's some auction damage with the forks. That is something that's normal on the cars you get from the auction. Looks like a factory drive shaft, and we'll see what the rear differential ratio is. I'm pretty excited about that. Have some axles. Rear subframe looks good. Fuel tank, like I was thinking, also looks good. And up here, even the transmission doesn't look too bad. It looks like a little bit of heat got into it. It looks more like just melted stuff got on it instead of it getting actually burnt in the bottom of the engine. Looks remarkably well. It looks like it's a hydraulic power steering rack, but the boot melted off of it, meaning the seal is probably bad. So I'll probably just end up maybe tossing this or selling it as a parts rack. And the subframe also got burned, but it looks relatively good. It doesn't look like it has any damage on it. And has turned into a pile of goo that's just kind of sitting in between this lower radiator mount and the subframe. What I want to do is I want to get all of the engine pulled out of here first so I can assess the damage, get pretty much everything out, and see what we're working with. It looks like, you know, the paint's still on the block. It doesn't look like it's too terrible. This strut on this side still has color in it, but it did burn the wiring to the active dampening, so that is no good. I'm going to throw this away. The calipers look pretty decent, but also it looks like there's some coating missing off of it, like the clear. I'm guessing that happened before the fire, but yeah, I mean, they're a good set of calipers. The pads still look like they are half-life. Usually I don't like to go that far down on pads on Hellcats, especially if you're going to do some high mile-an-hour pulls and then have to brake. But back here, the back of the caliper on the passenger side looks like it got a little bit charred, but it looks like the paint is still under there. The brake line did get burned. Leg maker cover melted into the, I guess there's still some coolant in there. I don't understand why anybody would want one of these hot air intakes. It just, the exhaust is right there. It's not funneling any cold air into it. This makes your Hellcat slower. I don't know. Carbon fiber piece. Ooh, it's still carbon fibery on the bottom. The resin didn't burn out of it. Literally, that's all that happened, was the resin burned out of this. You can see. And this is the aftermath. We just have raw carbon fiber again. Oh, there's actually a cat in there. I can't believe it. Ah. Oh, there's a cat in both of them. Amazing. Gross. It's the moment of truth to figure out how much water the fire department and sitting outside with no oil cap in Florida through a hurricane put in the engine. This is always where you worry. I'm guessing there's probably quite a bit of water in here. Ooh, look, there's some water. Oh man, oh geez, that's quite a bit of water. That is a lot of water. Oh my gosh. Oh, there's the oil. It's going to be interesting to pull this pan and see what's going on. I could try to turn the engine over really quick and see where we're at. Spins pretty decent. I don't want to go too far until I get the oil pan off, but I think there's no water in the cylinders because the injectors are still in there. The oil cap was melted, so hopefully we have perfect cylinder walls. But I'm going to pull the heads off, get all the plastic that melted in from the oil cap and the other things, and kind of figure out where we're at from there so I can inspect the cylinder walls. I think that's a really important part, as well as pull the pan so I can inspect what's going on inside the engine to see if, you know, that was a lot of water in there. But this thing does hold 6 quarts of oil, so I'm guessing the water could have been just to here. But if the crankshaft is rusty, you know, the crankshaft in the engine will have to be torn down and the you know, and fixed. So, or I could sell it as parts, clean everything up, and just go from there. But let's get the engine out of the car. I just wanted to drain all that out so it wasn't going to be an issue later on. And hopefully we don't have any issues. If anybody's looking for some fresh Hellcat interior, just needs a little bit of cleaning, fresh from the auction, $5,500 or best offer, but I won't take anything less than $5,500. Fuel tank is now out of the car and everything looks good. It doesn't look like the fire got past that rear seat, which is really nice. So I'm really happy that I have a good fuel tank, because I needed this fuel tank with the fuel pump assemblies to stick in this red Magnum. So I've been collecting parts for this thing. I almost have everything I need to finish the swap, which is going to be really nice. Before I do the swap though, I want to paint the engine bay, undercoat the bottom of the car, and then pretty much clean everything up. The one unfortunate thing was I was hoping this was going to be a good differential. It is a good differential, but it's not a good ratio. So unfortunately, this is the dreaded 262 rear end that comes in most Hellcats, and it's really nice for the inexperienced driver, because acceleration, you're not going to be breaking the tires loose all the time. But the really desirable one is the 309, which was what I was hoping it was going to be, but this is what we have in this. So I do have a 309 in that car over there, which is all the Scat Pack stuff, which is funny because that was like a base, kind of a base model Scat Pack, had a good differential in it. That was a 309 instead of a 262. They also have a I believe a 370 and a 390. I don't know why you'd want either of those in a rear wheel drive car, especially a Hellcat. The 309s already are very prone to people, you know, spinning the tires and, you know, wrecking the cars, getting sideways, and not really knowing how to control them if they're inexperienced. The good thing about this is the axles look good. The rotors and the pads on the calipers in the rear look like they're brand new or very close to new. There is not even a lip on the rotor. Pads almost look new. The one downfall was I thought these were OE wheels. These are Chinese knockoffs, but they're 20 by 11s, which is a plus. So that's why they look so good on the car. But most likely I didn't want to run Chinese wheels, but these are the wheels that are most likely going to go on the red Magnum. I need to probably recoat them. I'm probably going to do them in a maybe a bronze, or you know, maybe a similar color to this, maybe a similar color to like my old Hellcat, my old Hellcat Challenger, that had like that really shiny bright silver, or not silver, but like a gunmetal color. But now that we have all this stuff stripped out, I want to get the car off the lift. I need to make a little car dolly, so it'll be a lot easier. But what I have for today, and what I usually use, is the same thing I use for trannies, is these little wooden dollies. I'll set the car on there. Once the car is on there, I'll pull the side skirts, the doors, the fenders. I'll probably pull the rear bumper off before I pull her off the lift, so I have it up a little bit. But besides that, this side skirt, I was kind of disappointed. It was kind of crispy right here. I was planning on putting both these side skirts onto the red Magnum as well, but I might kind of wait until I have a better set. These ones aren't horrible. This one is a little less crispy. I was going to be able to fix that. I probably could still fix both of these, but we'll see what I end up doing. At least all the holes for the mounting are still there and still kind of in the same location. I could also hit this with some heat and smooth it out with a heat gun. Oh man, this thing was rear-ended. Interesting. I was thinking this was rear-ended, and I was like, man, this bumper support is perfect. But I think what was going on here is they tried to the fire department, put the jaws of life right here, to pop the trunk, but they were unsuccessful. I think it was the fire department. I'm very confused. It looks like there's a Sawzall blade inside the trunk, or inside the back seat. It looks like they tried to cut into the trunk to get their stuff out, but they were unsuccessful doing that. But I don't know how they would do this unless they tried it like with a jack or something. I have no clue. I'm kind of at awe right now. Luckily enough, I don't think they got the harness, which is nice. Just barely. Good. Yeah, so I know the harness isn't going to be all the way good. All the back stuff was good, and then all the stuff for the trunk, and then I think it's going to be good all the way under the carpet. Center console is going to be fine. The only thing that's going to be bad is where it connects to the body control module. So as you guys know, I love keeping spare wiring harnesses around just in case I have to modify something, especially when I'm converting magnums. It's always nice to have extra wire that is the same color, because you have to wire up the hatch, and to do that you need to wire new plugs and connect everything so it's like factory, but the trunk wiring isn't going to be long enough to reach. Plus you're adding connectors in the hatch so it then looks factory. So I'm going to pull this bumper support off, because these are very desirable, because the old magnums are steel. It converts it to aluminum. It's a lot lighter. All these bolts, I like keeping bolts as well. And then these wing pieces right here are still good. And I like having these because they also sell good, but it's nice to have these around because you know, I work on a lot of chargers and I could fix something if I needed to. Now that the rest of the Charger is stripped, I want to tear down the engine. I also want to get the transmission, because I'm going to end up selling this 8 HP 90. It looks like it's relatively good. Doesn't look like there's any issues with it. It really doesn't look like it got that hot, but I won't know until I get this all separated. You can see it looks like a bunch of plastic is all ran down it, but this right here is from the AC water, or the condensation. It drips on the top of the transmission, causes all of this. But up here, it doesn't look like the supercharger is bad either. Looks like it got pretty hot, but it doesn't look like it is really. Yeah, look, it was powder coated. So I wonder what was done with this supercharger. Okay, that's a plus. The O-ring isn't melted. The snout looks stock, so it doesn't look like it's ported. I thought it was going to be a ported snout. Not too bad. No water. The O-rings, you can see they got a little bit toasty. They're a little bit melted, which isn't too bad because the lid looks good. It looks like it had, I guess there's some water right here, but it doesn't look like there's any water in the rotors. Doesn't look like there was any water in here. Now that the lid's off, you can see that the inside of the supercharger looks great. The rotors look great. Doesn't look like there's any wear on them. Actually, we have a little nick in the coating right there, which is kind of normal on these superchargers, especially ones that don't have pulleys. I mean, this is just a stock, stock supercharger. It wasn't overspun or anything like that. We can look at the back rotor wear. Doesn't look like there's much wear on the back of the rotors. And she seems like she spins pretty nice and freely. The only reason I can't spin her around is because there's a piece of aluminum melted and stuck down here, so the pulley's getting stuck on it. There also is a little piece of plastic melted into the intercooler brick. Hopefully I can get that out. So for the intercooler bricks, these O-rings or gaskets, whatever you want to call them, if the engine has lit on fire, most likely these are going to go bad. They have a very low temperature tolerance. So especially these ones here. And as you can see, this O-ring, whatever it's made out of, usually these don't burn or melt in between the throttle bar unless it's a really, really hot fire. For some reason or another, whatever this O-ring is made out of, it's not the same as these up here that are also green, or these that are this orange color. So you can see the gasket for the lid, and that's why the bolts were kind of loose. You know, those, you know, this stuff burned. But for the most part, I would say this looks like it's gonna be a good supercharger after I do a little bit of work. This O-ring or gasket back here looks like it was unfazed by the heat. On this one, almost unfazed. But like I said, if I can get this plastic melted back out of this intercooler brick, we'll be good on these intercooler bricks and not have to worry about really doing much other than recoating and maybe putting some bearings and seals in the supercharger. I want to get all this stuff broken up and out of the way before you pull the supercharger off so it doesn't go down the intake ports. There we are. There's no water in the cylinders because the injectors and the O-rings, man, look at those O-rings, they're still good. So whatever those are made out of also can withstand some heat, but this might not have gotten really that hot, just hot enough to melt most of the plastics. These superchargers are always a pain to get off. So just get under something, give her a little pry. She'll come up, break that seal. Oh, there's water in there, no. The supercharger had a bunch of blow-by. You can see the discoloration on the aluminum. And you can see this O-ring here is good, and I've shown this before. This is a crankcase passage, but this one, you can see it's blown out. So that's what happens. They blow out, and then the blow-by from your crankcase goes directly into the supercharger, and it just causes a bunch of havoc. Not really havoc, but it then you consume oil. So the best mod for a Hellcat is to get some sort of aluminum or plastic spacer that has O-rings that fixes this issue. I don't know why Dodge has not yet fixed this, because it's a big issue. There's water in that port, and if there's water in one, there has to be water in multiple cylinders. So one thing I was kind of concerned about is this car was on fire. The fire department did pressure, you know, they sprayed the engine down with high pressure water. But also this car came from Tampa. And before I got it, and before I paid for it, and before the insurance company approved my bid, because they were coming at me with a counter offer, I saw that there was a tornado, or not a tornado, I guess a hurricane in Tampa, and there was a lot of flooding. I guess there was like 6 to 7 feet of water, and the auction location is like a mile off the coast. So I was like, well, you know, they didn't approve my offer, and then they instantly approved it, like right after I saw that thing on the news. So I was like, well, that's kind of sketchy. Hopefully the car didn't flood. I mean, there was plenty of water inside the car, you can tell, but it was also on fire. But I don't know if this was because of the fire. I guess I could see if it's salt water, but I don't know how to test for salt water. So it is what it is. It's just kind of weird that the insurance company came back after they said that they weren't going to approve my my bid, and then they instantly approved it. So who knows what happened, but there was a lot of sand and stuff inside the exhaust as well when I tipped it out. So water was definitely inside the exhaust and everything. So maybe that's a crab in there. It kind of looks like a a spider or something, I don't know. It's weird looking. But this head looks decently good, but we won't know until we get the valve covers and the head off. So oh yeah, the one thing I hate more about fire is these turn into goo. See how much rust is in here. A lot less than I thought. This is actually, from what I was seeing, I thought it was going to be rusty. What was I seeing that was rusty in here? It looks perfectly fine, other than the water being in there. In this valve cover, unfortunately, I thought it was going to be good, but I mean, it's still usable. I'll probably sell them on eBay, but you can see when they get hot, the aluminum bubbles, and I don't like to keep stuff that's bubbled, so I'll probably list them pretty cheap. The one good thing is it didn't get hot enough to melt these O-rings, so it wasn't that hot, but it's hot enough to bubble the valve covers. And I might actually clean these up and coat them and just put on the ad that they were in a fire and they have a little bit of bubbling. See that right there? Which at the end of the day doesn't hurt anything other than cosmetically something that you're never gonna actually see. All right, I think this valve cover might be okay. We'll see once we get her off. It's actually not bad. And valve cover wise, this valve cover has a little tiny bit of bubbling right there. But other than that, I think she's definitely usable. So you want to remove that because there's 10s here. So don't forget those 5 10s, because I've seen a lot of people forget them. They'll get these 2 outer ones because they can see them, but they forget the 3 in the center. Get this crusty power steering pump off of here. Send it to where it belongs. The junk pile, hydraulic power steering. Listen, I'm afraid what's inside because these cylinder walls rust pretty easily. So how is what? Doesn't even make sense. I'm not sure how this makes sense at all. It doesn't look too rusty, just very, it seems like there's oil in there too. No way. Oh my god. Am I gonna get lucky on this one? So there's definitely water in there. Oh, is it coming out? The top ring area is a little bit oily. There's still a little bit of rust in there. I need to crank her over, but this had the water in it. The valve was closed, but this is the one that has the water in it. It doesn't make any sense to me, but the rest of the cylinders have a little bit of carbon buildup on the edge, and that's what I was talking about that valley gasket that blows out. That's a big issue, and that's what happens is it builds carbon up, and as you keep building carbon up, the piston tops actually look pretty clean, so they're probably using pretty good grade gasoline in it. But as you build more and more carbon up, and once the pistons get coated in carbon, then you have this issue where you can have detonation and knock because of the increased compression because of that carbon, and then that carbon will start breaking up, going through your valves, and it's kind of hard. So you know, on an engine like this, 700 horsepower engine, which they make 700 to the crank, not to the wheels, it's something to be concerned about. So I would say that is probably the most important Hellcat upgrade that anybody can do ever. It'll stop all of this carbon, plus a catch can will stop blow by. But if you do that, plus a catch can, you pretty much eliminate almost 75% of Hellcat issues. Oh no. All right, looks like we have nasty water in that cylinder. Or maybe that's not coolant. It looks like coolant. There's no way it's coolant. Okay, there's no rust. There's no rust. Is that coolant? Did I luck out and that's coolant? Oh man. Oh, hell yeah. So it wasn't rusty water. It was coolant in these two. That one had a little bit of water. You can see in the cylinder right there. It has a little bit of surface rust, which may come out if I turn her over a few times. I sprayed some penetrating oil on there. I'm gonna do the same on these. Crank her over a few times and kind of see where we're at. You can see all this flaky carbon buildup, which is always great. But yeah, let's crank her over a few times. All this carbon buildup. The plastic water pump impeller isn't melted. That's a good sign. This O-ring also isn't melted and there's still coolant in it. I got the supercharger most of the way apart. I didn't want to pull the rotors out yet, and the reason I wanted to go through this was because it was in a fire and it needs to be recoated to be able to sell it, and I want to be able to say that it is 100% good. It does spin over really nice and freely. Most of the O-rings that came out of it looked decent compared to, I have that 18 Trackhawk supercharger core up there, or the main housing. The lid was melted a little bit on the corner on that supercharger, and all of these O-rings turned into like a tacky glue almost. So because it got so hot, it just changed the properties of these O-rings. I think they're silicone, but this thing looks really good. It's burnt, some of the coatings burn off, but it can be recoated. One thing I like to do is I like to go through, redo the bearings in these. The rotors also, I want to pull them out because water was in there and it got really like gummy, and it has like kind of like milky, oily water residue inside the rotors, so, or inside the housing where the rotors are. So I want to take that all apart, clean it, get it 100%, get everything coated, and then I want to pull these out, put high-speed bearings in this, and then I could put it all back together. It'll be like a brand new supercharger. So these 18 superchargers actually sell for a little bit more than the older 17 and later superchargers because they have this ribbing that goes all the way up to the intercooler bricks. And the good thing is I saved this intercooler brick. It had the IAT or map sensor melted into the fins. I used the heat gun from the backside to blow for a little bit, and it just pulled right out. No damaged fins. I'll put these both in the ultrasonic cleaner and they will look brand new. The tops of the cylinders look good. It doesn't look like the water was up to the bottom of the pan. I mean, it was running down somewhere, but whatever that was, looks like it was coated. If you don't have an ultrasonic cleaner, I've been using this a bunch. This is a Viver one. There's a bunch of different brands. this is actually really cheap and it works very well. I wish they had a larger one because I've been doing oil pan in sections, but as you can see, it wasn't too bad. Up here it was kind of milky, and this had a little bit of like kind of etching rust on it. In ultrasonic cleaners, I have simple green and then 5 gallons of distilled water. It will get a lot of different styles of rust off of stuff, which is really nice. I need to change this solution because I've been doing stuff like oil pans and pistons that were really dirty, and it gets kind of grimy, and then you kind of get like this sludge stuff that kind of looks like mud. I need to figure out what I'm going to do with the heads, since that one of the heads has a little bit of, it had water in there and the valve was a little rusty. I think I probably could pull the springs and the valves out, throw the heads in the ultrasonic cleaner, clean them for an hour, then put it all back together. It'd be perfectly fine. I don't think it's going to have any sealing issues or any other issues besides it having surface rust on the face of that valve. And then I could also, if I wanted to, Cerakote it. Same thing with the supercharger. I'm probably going to pull that thing apart, throw it in the ultrasonic cleaner, then end up blasting it and powder coating it, or maybe Cerakoting it. Same thing with the lid and all those parts. And then the intercooler bricks, I'll make sure to put those in when the solution is brand new, and they'll come out like the oil pan. They'll look like a brand new brick. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about the water pump, because I don't think anybody offers like an upgraded impeller. And you could, I could coat this and then just blast it and fix it and make it look brand new and reuse it. But I don't think anybody makes a billet aluminum one of these, because these are composite plastic. With the supercharger snout, I'll probably end up porting that, putting high-speed bearings in it, put a smaller pulley on it, maybe just refresh this whole supercharger. And I might end up putting this supercharger on this 17 Hellcat, and then I'll end up selling that good 6 or 17 supercharger, since it's a less desirable one, and just throw it on my eBay store, because it is a good supercharger. They don't make as much power. I think they make like 80 horsepower less with the older superchargers compared to the ones that have the dividers all the way up to the bricks. Then outside, or actually before we go outside, we have the brakes. They're good. Calipers are good. We have this stuff for the rear wheel wells. That stuff I'm going to use on the Red Magnum. I'm probably not going to end up using these brakes right here. I have a different set of silver calipers on a car I accidentally showed you earlier. And then we have all the wheels. I'll probably end up using these wheels on the Red Magnum out here. And then out here, I have the 18 BGE. This short block looks really, really good. I think that, I asked a friend that's helping me on another project about this little bit of, this water ingress they got in here, and it was just sitting there for a little bit. And he said, if you can't feel it, you're probably going to be perfectly fine, which I was already thinking that since I couldn't feel it, and I don't think it's going to be an issue. I do want to clean this thing up, so I'll probably end up taping this off with some duct tape or something like that, and then I'll clean all this gross stuff out of here. And that's another reason I want to get the oil pan back on the engine. Plus, then I could set the engine on a nice little cart like the transmission. I also want to clean up the transmission, get all of this grime and burnt plastic off of it. Looking on the inside, it didn't get hot enough because there's no bubbling, which is really good. Everything looks really good on this transmission. The fluid came out of it, looked clear. So like I said before, I don't think this had a ton of miles on it, which is a really reassuring thing, because if the fluid came out, usually the fluid in these is the 8-speed automatic transmission fluid, and it's clear when it goes in. So if it comes out and it's like brown or darker, it's probably, it either needs to be changed, or you have issues, or you could smell if it's burnt. Like that one subscriber's car, that transmission was completely destroyed, and you could tell, the fluid was black. That stuff comes clear. The valve covers, I'll probably end up maybe blasting these, or maybe just selling them how they are, just because the one had a little bit of issue. I don't know exactly where it was, but it had a little tiny bubble. I think I could see it on the inside. But other than that, it looked like these were pretty good. I might actually end up just blasting them, or probably throw them in the ultrasonic cleaner, blast them, coat them, make them look brand new for a future project later down the road, or maybe even just sell them. And then the subframe right here looks really good. I mean, I don't see any issues. The only thing that I really didn't like about it was that 262 ratio, the dreaded Hellcat diff ratio that nobody wants, but they put in. You know, that's a safe one. If you have somebody that's inexperienced and they're going to get a Hellcat, give them the 262. But if not, you want to go to the drag strip, this differential is pretty much worthless otherwise. So you know, it's not worthless, but it's less desirable than all the other ones. And then we got that crash bar. I ended up cutting the quarter panel off of the car just so it didn't get damaged, and so I could end up getting, you know, just getting rid of the car and crushing it instead of it had, you know, just sitting around for no reason, which was really nice because a good quarter panel is always nice to have around. And then we have the rear bumper over here. This thing got a little bit crispy, and then it looks like they're trying to open the trunk, so it kind of smashed it down. But it does have, you know, a few good parts on it that I'm going to end up using on this Magnum. I need the parking sensors. I might actually mold this bumper into that bumper over there, so it has the newer style rear bumper on it. Like I said before, I don't want to wide body this car because they already are sort of wide bodied from the factory, but a little bit of an upgrade for the rear bumper would be a plus. The same thing with the front bumper. I want to do a Charger front end on a factory Magnum, but not this one, because I want this to just stay as a factory, kind of a sleeper look Magnum. The only reason I want to do that rear bumper and mold it in is so I have the dual exhaust option instead of having to cut a hole out. I think it'll be a lot nicer, a lot cleaner, since I'm going to paint the car anyway. There are a few dings on here, and it looks like it got a little bit of hail on it, but we'll get this thing all nice and ready to go. And I have another car coming in, or it's already here, you guys kind of saw it, but coming in for the drivetrain for this car. I finished tearing the doors all the way completely down, and I ended up with quite a few good parts. Ended up with 3 complete window regulator assemblies, as well as 1 piece of glass. So the other 2 pieces of glass that were half rolled down, they were laminated, and it actually burned out some of the plastic lamination. So this was the only good piece of glass. And the only reason this thing was saved was because it was all the way up, and it had 2 layers of window tint on it. So the tint, first layer was completely burned through. You can almost see, you can actually see the first layer of tint I peeled off, all the way burned through. And the second piece wasn't burned at all. So I just had to razor blade it off. There's still kind of some residue, so I need to get some ammonia, put this in a bag, then wipe all that off, and we'll have a good piece of window glass. I'll probably just save this just because it's always nice to have spare glass laying around. Luckily enough, all 4 of the doors ended up being usable in some shape or form. The 2 driver's side doors had a little bit of fire damage on this leading edge. The driver's side front, a little bit more than the driver's side rear. And then the passenger side front and rear doors ended up being decently good. There's a few chips and nicks and scratches, but for the most part, these doors are very usable. If I was going to need a door, I probably wouldn't even paint this door or the rear passenger door. There isn't really anything on these. There's a few spots where they touched it up, but for the most part, it's a good door, good used car door. You wouldn't have to do much. So I have these door shells listed. I don't have all 4 right here. I have another one off an SXT that I parted out. This thing is also good. It has a few nicks and scratches, but for the most part, it's a good door shell. And I couldn't believe, I've been trying to sell these, well, this one for 150 bucks for probably a year. And these door shells in this condition sell for like 600 bucks on eBay. It's crazy to think that they're that expensive. And that is a wrap for the 2018 Charger Hellcat that caught on fire. There were a bunch of surprises with the car. I didn't expect to find anything inside the trunk or the center console because it was so severely burned. I also didn't think the trunk or the rear bumper were going to be messed up. It was really hard to tell from the pictures. the auctions don't always take the best pictures because they have people that probably have to take pictures of 100 cars a day, and they don't take the best pictures. I think COPART and IAA should invest in a machine that they just roll the car through. It gives you an underneath shot and all the other shots all at once, and then you wouldn't have to kind of guess what's going on underneath the car when it says undercarriage damage, and then you get it and the transmission's ripped in half. And I'm gonna end the video here. If you like these videos, make sure to click the subscribe button, throw a thumbs up, share it with your friends, comment below. As always, see you guys next time.